45 years in keeping Louisville weird, Electric Ladyland has been there for all your eccentricities. While they do offer the best smoking supplies out on the market today, there's a whole lot more to check out. From ashtrays and blacklight posters, to records, incense and burners, and items to stock your metaphysical supply. They're open from 10 to 10, 7 days a week, located at 2325 Bardstown Road in Louisville, Kentucky, and at electricladyland420.com. Roll out.
This is Aaron Ossont with Ossont and Battery on the Flamekeeper Network, and my guest today is Steve Scavuzzo from the band Clouds Taste Satanic. They're a band from Brooklyn, New York, and they do instrumental doom metal, a little bit of psychedelia mixed in. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, my friend, for having me.
Awesome. The first thing I wanted to know is, how did you get started playing music, and what was maybe one of your first influences?
Got started with guitar, wanting a guitar, looked awesome. Got a guitar, got an amp, got actually a nice amp, an old Ampeg V4 that my father had a friend that had one, and I got it for me. And the thing was great. It was great guitar, great amp. Was really interested in playing Pink Floyd's Animals. That was a record I had at the time, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I want to play this record. It only took me a little while to realize that having the guitar and having the amp and actually playing some of the things that I wanted to play were two different things. And so had to strive a little bit in that direction, took some lessons. I think that I got discouraged early on because I think my ambitions were high, and it probably took punk rock to make me feel like this is something a little more like I can do, you know? And so really started from there and then worked my way up to okay, I got to do my own thing now. And, you know, it was great to try and learn other people's stuff, and definitely influenced with my writing. But as far as playing goes, I'm pretty meat and potatoes. But I mean, I like a riff. I can write a riff, but I found what I wanted to do in stoner doom.
Now, what were some of the punk rock bands that first influenced you? Like you said, you kind of found punk rock, and what were some of those bands?
Black Flag first, Husker Du, big time. I was a huge Husker Du fan. You know, then kind of like, you know, moving up to the Replacements, who started kind of punky, that then kind of went a little more like, you know, like a garage rock kind of vibe. And those were, but Black Flag especially was like was a big one as well. And just so it just kind of felt like there was you know, it was something that I could play, it was something that I could write, and you know, move from there, you know. And I think it kind of morphed into the stoner doom thing, because maybe not the speed per se, but more of a simplistic way of writing, which really appealed to me as a listener and also as a writer.
Awesome. Now, with the you said you got into stoner doom. What was like some of the first bands that you would call that really kind of struck your ear in the stoner doom band? You were like, hey man, I really gotta play this.
Right. Well, I mean, everyone starts with Black Sabbath. There's no getting around that.
Exactly.
I think that well, you know, I guess I would probably have to say Caius. Caius and Monster Magnet were like, you know, those kind of bands were, I don't know if it was quite named that at the time, but it was definitely, it was like, okay, I'm really into these bands, and Fu Manchu. Those were like the three I think that I really was like, wow. And it was kind of at a time where, even though, you know, in the 90s when it was like, there was definitely grunge, which was great because you had heavy guitars, but it was kind of moving away from that. Then I kind of picked up on Caius and I was like, okay, there's still bands out there that kind of fly in the flag for heavy, but it actually felt more like, you know, I don't want to say attainable. That's the wrong word for it. It's more like more appealing, I guess, you know. I was just like, maybe it was because it had that retro vibe, but man, those three bands especially, I really dug.
Yeah, they were definitely a big influence on my listening and stuff like that. I really dug all those bands. You know, I mean, who didn't? You know, if you're
Oh,
into
for sure.
Doom, you know.
Yeah. But I mean,
Now,
before that, you know, I don't even recall it ever being called stoner or doom at the time. It was just basically rock and or kind of retro hard rock, whatever they were calling it. And I was just like, man, these bands are fucking awesome. But even then, it took a while to, like, you know, gear my playing in that direction as well too. You know, so it's like, I don't know why I have a real disconnect sometimes to picking up on things a little bit. I can appreciate them, but it was like, wow, maybe I should try and gear my own playing towards this kind of music. It took years for me to figure that out, but better late than never.
yeah, exactly. Now, were you in any bands before Clouds Taste Satanic?
A few, you know, the first one, um, I've started a bunch of bands, and the first one had more of an alternative kind of kind of vibe. It was like a mix of everything, you know. It was like whatever we were listening to, and I think that was the problem too. It's like when you're starting a band and you're writing music, you kind of grab all your influences from all over the place. And I listen to a lot of different kinds of music, and which is great from a listening point of view. You know, you have a broad interest in music, but when you're trying to write, it really helps to focus on a direction. And those first couple of bands, I was just grabbing things from everywhere, you know, from as far as like Radiohead, Butthole Surfers, you know, anything I would listen to going, wow, this is awesome, I should try and write something like this, you know. And you know, it's fun, but I don't think it was necessarily listenable, or you know, from I mean, I loved it, but you know, it's sort of like you need focus sometimes when you're writing for a band. And the bands that I was playing in, we could have been a lot farther if we did nothing but write like lame Ramones type songs, you know, just three chords and that's all we did. But if we focused on that and actually did it, you know, we could have made something of ourselves. But you know, live and learn. Takes your time.
Exactly. Now, how did Clouds Taste Satanic come about exactly? Well, what now that you've been around for what, about 10 years now or so? About
Yeah, it really the idea of it started in 2013. So yeah, I'd say it's 10 years. Um, I think at that time I really had to kind of make some decisions about the direction I was going in. And you know, the stuff that I'd done prior to that was I'd consider more post-rock, very much Mogwai, Godspeed You Black Emperor kind of influenced. It was instrumental, but it was more cinematic, less heavy. And I was just, you know, starting to listen to more bands like Sun and Sleep and Electric Wizard, you know. And I realized that I needed to move, have something that moved in a direction that I was more interested in playing and listening to for the long haul, you know, regardless of how it worked out, you know. I took out of the success equation. You know, when you start bands and you know you've got in the back of your mind, man, we really want to be successful. We want this. So when I pulled that element out of it, and it was like, you know, what is it that I really want to play? What is it that I really want to record and hear? And so Clouds was essentially took all the elements of all previous bands, all the mistakes that I had made in previous bands, you know, as far as anything from the band name to the type of music to the way it was promoted, all the things that had that I learned over the years and all the mistakes that I made. I was like, all right, I'm going to put something together that is going to avoid all that. I'm actually going to use those years of knowledge to try and put something together. And Clouds was the collection of that idea. of all the things that I wanted to not only to hear, but to do, regardless of how successful it was. And once that I landed on that, I was a lot happier. And I thought the band was definitely ironically became more successful because of that.
Now, what made you decide to not have any vocals? Because that's a pretty bold move. For a lot of people, I know a lot of people that won't listen to instrumental music. They just can't get into it.
Right.
And for me, it never really bothered me. I was always into like kind of the jammier and instrumental passages and some music. So what made you decide to go all instrumental?
Well, from a personal point of view, it was like, I had been playing that stuff before, was listening to it before. I knew there was a world of people out there who had no problem with bands that didn't have vocals. Maybe it was from that post-rock background, like a band like Godspeed was using samples, but for the most part, there's no vocals. And so, that kind of a cinematic approach, I knew that there was people out there that I enjoyed it, and I knew other people were. And to be honest with you, a vocalist in a band, when you're putting a band together or you have a band, I'm not sure how much, and it would be interesting to ask other bands how they go about finding their, the singer. Do they actually actively go out and find somebody and audition them? Do they just say, okay, well, there's three of us, who can sing the best? Let's just sing, I mean, I always wonder about how they reach that thing, Do you care if the guitarist who's singing doesn't have that great a voice, but he can scream really well? Or do you go actively out to find somebody who can sing like Rob Halford or Dio or whatever? I mean, whatever that goal is. And I've played in bands with mediocre singers, and I've played in bands with great singers. And the one thing I learned at the time is that vocalists have a disproportionate effect on how your band sounds. You could have the greatest guitar, bass, and drums and come up with the most awesome riffs you ever come up with. But as soon as you put that vocalist on top, it doesn't matter how awesome the rest of the band is. If you like that vocalist, that's awesome. That's great. But if you don't, you're like, this sucks. I'm moving on. Because the vocalist is like, it's what you flew into. You can listen to a great riff for 30 seconds, but when that vocal comes in and it's not appealing to you, it's like, holy crap, I'm out. I can't deal with this, and you move on.
And usually are the highest in the mix too,
Oh yeah, it's like they're like the Godzilla of the band is Tokyo and it's Godzilla just stomping all over it. And again, if it's the vocalist that you're like, if you got Matt Pike in your band singing, and you're coming up with groovy riffs, you're golden. But and we kind of like, when we putting the band together, it started as instrumental, and as time has gone on, we've had this discussion variously, over time. But I'm actually surprised. Everyone is pretty much solid on the fact that it's kind of unnecessary. And I don't know if it's because, everyone in the band is a musician and just enjoys what they're doing and doesn't feel it's necessary, or upset, or doesn't want to upset the balance. But yeah, again, that was also the thing about success versus enjoying yourself. On paper, you're crazy not to get a vocalist. You want a successful band, you get a vocalist. Because 90% of people will be like, what the hell? Where's the vocals? I'm waiting for them. But if you're less concerned about that and you're more concerned about the music, then it's not as big a deal.
Hey, can you hold on for 1 second? I just got to do something real quick.
Absolutely, no problem.
Sorry about that, dude.
No more.
All right. So, what I was going to ask you next is, coming on the heels of the instrumental question, is a lot of your songs are very longer. You have some longer songs. We're talking in the 20-minute range. how did you decide to, like, maybe go with longer songs? How did that kind of come about?
Well, the first three records, well, actually the first record is basically one 40-minute song. So that there was a precedent for doing long things. Then the next three albums, and then the next two after that moved into like shorter songs, shorter being like 6 minutes long. So that's still, pretty healthy. And when we were doing Glitter, um, this was back in 2016, 2017. I think we just kind of like landed on it. The kind of thing where it's like, I started writing the song and it was just going on and on. And I think we realized that no one wanted to, like, chop it down. We were just kind of like going there. And then I kind of thought about it, and it was sort of like, to be honest with you, if you got three songs on a side of vinyl and they're each like, 7 or 8 minutes, the only difference between that and a 20-minute song is essentially there's a gap.
Yeah.
You stop playing and then you start up again. So it's not that difficult to like create a little bit more music that bridges those gaps, and in the beginning it was trying to make it more thematic. It was like, coming back to an idea. In a way, that's almost easier. It's like, okay, well, instead of song 1, 2, and 3, we'll write one song and we'll dip back at the end of song 1 to something we started at the beginning of it, and revisit an idea. I mean, it's an old classical music idea. It's nothing new at all, but it just felt like, and I was always into concept records as well too, bands that did like the double album and like, big thematic stuff. I always loved that idea. So we kind of landed on it with one song, and then we thought, okay, well, this is actually great. And a good idea that we're comfortable doing. And so started doing it. And without, aside from the covers record, that's really the way we've been doing it. We've got a new record coming out in the spring, and that has the same thing, but we're also writing now too. And we've given some thought to the idea of just writing a couple of songs, maybe doing a record with some shorter songs,
Yeah.
just because we've done the 20-minute song stuff for so long now that it might be nice to just like, take a step back and check it out and see if we can do it.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. It's actually a challenge now to go back and write shorter songs.
Gotta
So
know when to let yourself, right? Kind
yeah,
of.
because, well, so when you're writing, and especially as you're writing as a band, there's a freedom to like, okay, I got an idea, let's put this in there. Oh, I got an idea now. Let's just add it on and just keep on rolling and rolling. And then before you know it, you're at 21 minutes. And I'm like, hey, side of vinyl, if it's gonna sound good, 20 minutes max, I'm like,
Yeah.
no, come on. It's like we're out of the CD version anymore, it's not like one long song, but so far, yeah. I mean, well, it'll be a challenge to go back to the shorter songs.
Now, do you find your fan base is pretty, like, do you kind of like have a cult following? I guess you might want to say a lot of your fans are pretty dedicated and seem to buy all of your stuff.
Yeah, to some extent, and as a person who buys vinyl, I can understand, you know, yeah, you kind of get in a little bit into the collector mentality, but obviously, you got to like the band. I
Yeah.
have so many Boris records, and I love Boris, but there's a lot of filler as well too. But you feel almost compelled to like, oh, a new Boris record, I gotta get it. And it's like might be not the one that I listen to regularly. There's other bands that are a little more, come out with records a little every couple of years that I'll probably spend more time listening to. But there's an element of like collection to some extent. But I also like to think that maybe if the music is more challenging and less simplistic, that it rewards multiple listens, and that if you're into that type of thing, that getting other records by us will give you that same reward, maybe. So I would hope that yeah, people are enthusiastic about it, or like the records enough to want to get the next one. More sort of enjoyment out of it rather than habit, but for sure.
I always, am pretty excited. And one thing that really gets me excited about when you guys get a new record is you always have some really cool packaging and artwork, and especially with some of your packages, you throw in some bonus items and stuff like that, and it's really cool stuff.
Thank
Um,
you.
I remember on one of them there was like a fake sheet of blotter acid.
Oh yeah, I love that one. I
It's
wish
just
we could
really
put
cool.
the real acid in there. That would have been that might have been much better. But
Yeah. And so, how did you guys decide to like, hey, let's start doing some of these more like elaborate packaging stuff?
A lot of it is again being fans of vinyl and being very excited when bands did that same thing. When I started getting back, vinyl was the way of life for a long time, and then it kind of stopped being the way of life, and then it started up again. And one of the forms of music that really brought vinyl back was the doom stoner thing. I remember getting those first Sun records, and the packaging on those things was beautiful. There's a Sun Boris record. It's a 3-record set. There's almost like a box set, and it's like that you could see that they took care to like really put something nice together. And I was like, this is great. This is what bands should be doing. And so as a fan, I was like really into it. And now to the point, in the beginning, we kind of everything was had a gatefold, but we held back mostly because of money. But as we've gone on in time, it's like, yeah, the goal is to make each new record a lot of artwork, a lot of add-ons, things like that, just to try and make it unique as opposed to just like, okay, here's the records, just slip it in a jacket, it's fine, who cares? What we really the packaging is really important to us, and it's hard each time to do something creative and interesting and to make people go wow, and still do it on a budget. It's expensive, but I think it's more important for us to, make less money and put more money towards the packaging and make ourselves and other people happy with what they get for their money, as opposed to just like, okay, well, we got to watch the bottom line and we got to make this amount of money on it. I got less interest in that, that kind of thing. So I'm surprised more bands don't spend more time, but if you're doing it yourself, it's expensive. And if you're doing it on a label, I'm sure the label pushes back and it's like, this is going to cost X, Y, and Z, and so, but yeah, we're really into it, and that will always continue for sure.
Now, speaking of that, first you started out, you released your records on your own, correct?
Everything up until
Last one, right?
no, the last one was on Majestic Mountain.
Yeah.
So yeah, up until that record, everything was on our own.
Now, how did you decide to go with a label on that release?
I think we never had a problem with going on a label. We enjoyed the fact of doing it ourselves because there's a lot of creative control, and you get things done when you want them to. Costs more money, of course. You got to work, you got to pay for it. But you want a record to come out on a certain date, you just do it yourself. You go to a label, and they might be excited to put your record out, but you're now standing in line behind every other person that they've signed. And if things are going good for the label and they're selling records, fine. If they're not, it slows things down. So we've never been averse to being on a label. Majestic Mountain was the first time that we'd spoken to someone that we felt like, really understood vinyl and what we wanted to do and was going to be supportive of it. There still were some delays in getting it out because, again, shit happens, with life, and most of these labels are run by one person anyway. So, things happen to people. But, we wanted to work with other labels, so we wanted to be part of the community. It's a benefit to the community. It's a benefit, but it's a benefit to us too. Working with labels, with booking agents, with people who like yourself, who do podcasts and write and do reviews and things like that. It's a community, and so you benefit from working with labels. And so that the time was right, and the next record's coming out on Majestic as well too.
Awesome.
And so we're happy to be on a label, but you got to make it work.
Now, when is the next record? When you said it was scheduled for spring or whatever?
March 1st.
March 1st. Awesome.
It's coming out on March 1st. The last record came out last February. So this one's coming out on March 1st. It's called 79 AE. And yeah, we've already got it in hand. We recorded it a year ago. Everything takes a year anyway. Even when you're like doing, stuff on your own, it still takes time. And, maybe putting out a record every couple of months is probably not that great an idea. So we want to space it out a little bit.
Now, we were speaking about the instrumental thing, and I was just thinking about this earlier because I was listening to some of the stuff. And from what I can tell, I think the only song that has a little bit of vocals or words in it might be the Pink Floyd cover on the Cloud Covered.
Yeah. We what did we do? There was a in the original song, there's one of these days I'm gonna cut you into little pieces. So we wanted to, try and do something like that without actually doing a vocal. I think it's like a computer, it's someone in the band doing it, but it's done through this computer generated thing and it's done in like Latin. We thought, we're trying to think of ideas to make it like more interesting and so we're like, oh well, this is cool, and it's it was a covers record, so we thought, okay, we'll try a little bit. But there was a little vocal, and there's another song, I can't remember which one it was. That Brian did like we had something that we wanted to use more like, instead of a vocal, more like an effect. And I think he was reading portions of the Satanic Bible. Clearly, we're gone all in on the Satan stuff, but we was like reading portions of that, and then we messed with his vocals in the studio and everything like that. So it's there. You maybe not, you can hear it as well, but that's pretty much it. Yeah, no singing at this point. And no one in the band has expressed interest. Well, I've had other people like reach out and go, "Oh man, your band would be great if it had vocals. I'm a singer. I want to sing." And we're like, "Okay, well, we're not there yet, but we'll see." But that was it. I think for the most part, there was some vocals on that one, but it was on the original.
Do you guys have any like live shows coming up? Do you mostly play locally, or do you have any plans on touring?
So we played Desert Fest in New York back in September. We were in Europe last May, June. We did a week of shows. So that was like the extent of touring really for that year, other than a few local shows. We're going to do Desert Fest London in May of 2024. Excuse me. And I think we're going to try and put together some sort of tour over there as well too. We don't do a lot of US touring. We've played festivals. We're kind of in this in-between thing where we're not prepared to just get in the van and go. But at the same time, we haven't discounted the idea of like, playing more shows in the US. We really we've been trying to keep it to festivals to some extent, but also to branch out. If we're invited places, we go. I mean, it's pretty rare that we don't. We play locally, but not a lot, only because New York City is a tough place to play on a regular basis. And New York City is just jaded, and I mean, they're fans for sure. There's people out there who will check out bands, but it's not. There's less of a thriving community, and it's more about which band is playing that particular night. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens in the new year. It's like anything, we got to reach out to places and we just got to go.
Exactly. I'd love it if you came up to Connecticut sometime, man. That would be great.
Oh, what's the place in there's that place that everyone plays in
Cherry Street Station?
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
We were actually supposed to play there, I think. I remember that once because we did like this whole we're up in Kingston we did a couple of shows with Geezer. I know we were played in Kingston and in Providence and we were going to play in Boston, and we were going to do the Cherry show as well too, and something happened and we only played a couple of the shows, but got to make it up there. And that festival that's every year too.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm not sure they love us. That's the thing. You kind of get the vibe. We played the Maryland Doom Fest a couple of years ago. I remember reaching out to I think we reached out to I can't remember the guy who puts that festival on all the time every year. Yeah. But I remember this was a couple of years ago. We wanted to play, and I think we reached out to him and said, we want to play. And he was cool. He got back to us and said, "Hey, are you interested in playing?" And we said, "Yeah, absolutely." He goes, "You still don't have a vocalist, do you?" I was like, "No." And it was a fun show. I mean, we had us anyway, but you can tell that it's like sometimes it's there's some resistance sometimes with because it's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea. Well, we wanted to play that RPM Fest in Western Mass. Two of our band members are from Massachusetts, so we really were. And I think we did the application for this year's show and didn't make it. So gonna have to keep flying.
There, yeah. So
So we'll see. We're very determined. So if we want something, we'll keep going back and forth, back to it. So we'll get to Connecticut.
Awesome. Now, I guess I really don't have much more to ask you. So before we wrap this up, do you have anything to promote? I guess, like I said, you have a new record coming up. Is there anything else you want to say about Clouds Taste Satanic?
Well, weirdly enough, and we have not released this information, but in 2 weeks we are doing. We've got a couple of Christmas songs that are coming out Black Friday.
Awesome.
You say that, you haven't heard them yet, though. Maybe you should hear them first and then decide what you. But it's kind of it's one of those things where you'll either like really dig them or like, holy crap, what the hell are these guys doing?
Well, that's perfect because the podcast network that I work with, we're actually going to be doing a metal Christmas song episode. So,
oh man, you've got to use one of our songs. Well, you'll check them out if you like them.
I'm sure. Well,
but they're shorter for sure. They're not 20 minutes. So.
Right.
We're there. So that'll come out. It's not on vinyl or anything like that, but we just put a couple of songs together that we thought would be fun. And awesome. So that's it for that. And yeah, we got the new record coming out and in March, and hopefully we'll play some gigs. Hopefully we'll get around and play some shows.
Awesome. Well, this is Aaron Ossont with Ossont Battery. That was Steve Scavuzzo with Clouds Taste Satanic. And everyone have a good one. Stay metal.
Maxwell's House of Music in Jeffersonville, Indiana is the premier 12,500 square foot music superstore that has served both the southern Indiana and Louisville, Kentucky metro area for over 4 decades. Originally founded by Marvin and Beverly Maxwell in the 70s, this gym remains a Maxwell family-owned business. Mark Maxwell, along with his business partner, Whitney McNichol, continue the reputation as being a national resource for all things music. In 2022, the iconic Guitar Emporium of Louisville relocated to Maxwell's Music, creating the largest independently owned showroom in the region. The retail offerings at Maxwell's Music includes a huge selection of guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects pedals, modeling amps, keyboards, drums, banjos, mandolins, ukuleles, sound systems, stage lighting equipment, and accessories. The music education program at Maxwell's is second to none. From private instrument and voice lessons to DG, EDM, recording, songwriting, and music theory, to rock school, weekend warriors, and Maxwell's Music Lab, there is something for every age and every ability level. In Repairland, guitar and instrument repairs and refurbishment are taken care of by the Maxwell's team of expert guitar technicians and luthiers. They also do instrument appraisals. Maxwell's offers installations for professional audio-visual and lighting systems for schools, churches, clubs, VFWs, funeral homes, sports fields, and so much more. There's also rentable space at Maxwell's, from music practice or rehearsal rooms for individuals or bands, all the way to a meeting space and concert venue that seats up to 120. That also includes a professional audio-visual and lighting system and a sound booth. Maxwell's has it all. All this plus an original, functioning 1947 recording booth to make your own record, to the Guitar Hero throne, to their very own Elvis statue, and don't forget the Harmony Green Pocket Park. There's a reason Maxwell's House of Music in Jeffersonville, Indiana has been recognized by the National Association of Music Merchants as the #1 award-winning Best Store Design, as well as Top 100 Music Store year after year. You gotta see it to believe it. Maxwell's House of Music in Jeffersonville, Indiana.